Good morning, folks. We're going to give just a moment for everyone to jump in. We're so happy to have you here at Angel Island State Park, and our program will start in just a few moments. Can my assistant, Jack, please give me just kind of a heads up when people entering has seemed to slow, and then we can get started with our program.
I think we're almost at everybody. I've got about 28 so far, and I haven't seen it go up for a minute, so I think we're probably good.
So we will get started then. Welcome to Angel Island State Park for our program Ka-plunk Ka-plunk, a spooky historic tale from Angel Island State Park. Today we're going to be having a program that takes place at Iola Cove, which is part of Angel Island State Park. People are very much so invited to come to Angel Island State Park, and they can see where the story that we're going to be covering today takes place. Our program's going to have kind of three major parts. The first is going to be a choose-your-own-adventure style retelling of a real newspaper article from 1907. The second part is going to be a little bit of a behind-the-scenes of how we converted that real story into the dramatic tale that you get to take part in today. And then after that behind-the-scenes look, we'll then go into answering an unsolved mystery that the story is going to leave. So if you want to find out the whole tale with the mystery solved, please stick around for the full 45-minute program. If anyone has any questions throughout the program, feel free to throw them into the Q&A function of Zoom, which can be found at the bottom bar of your screen. If you're on YouTube, unfortunately, we don't have a way of communicating back and forth with participants live streaming on YouTube, but we appreciate you being here nonetheless. Throughout the program, I'll take a few moments to pause, check in with Jack to see if anyone has left anything in the chat or in that Q&A, and we can then answer those questions from there. I want to introduce our special musical guest today. Right behind me are the members of Sol Quartet. They will be providing sound effects to help make this program extra special. So with that, I'm going to start the story. So again, this is Ka-plunk Ka-plunk, a spooky historic tale from Angel Island. To start the story, Angel Island's stories tend to be very global stories. So I like to start on kind of this world view where we're looking down at the planet Earth to show kind of all the different places around the world that stories tend to link to at Angel Island. So here we have Australia to my side, Asia, South America, North America, and Angel Island is going to be in North America. Kind of zooming in a little closer, we're going to be part of California. We are a California state park. California state parks are the second biggest park system in the entire planet. And we are one of them. Zooming in even closer, we got Angel Island itself. We are, in fact, an island in the San Francisco Bay. And with that, I want to launch a poll to see where folks are coming from and have whether or not you've had experience coming to Angel Island State Park before. It looks like about half of the people have, actually a little bit over half, but there are a few people who haven't been to Angel Island, so I want to thank you for coming out to this virtual program. I will admit that my first time coming to Angel Island was through a virtual program much like this, and so this is a great way to get to know Angel Island, and it's a great way to get to know our stories. And so we're gonna, now that we've established ourselves in the place of where Angel Island is, we're gonna go back in time to where this story takes place. So we're gonna go back in time to 1907 at the Angel Island Quarantine Station, which is now found, or which at the time was found at what is now Iola Cove. So Iola Cove at the time was this quarantine station where people, objects, and animals that were looking to come to the country would be sent in order to monitor them for signs of illness, or that they might have some sort of infectious disease that could be dangerous to introduce to San Francisco and the rest of the United States. They were particularly worried about smallpox and the Black Plague. And so with that, this quarantine station was built. The quarantine station had a hospital, officers' housing, a beach, and warehouses where cargo would be sanitized, where people would be decontaminated, and where people and animals would stay for multiple days monitoring for symptoms. But our story in particular is going to follow one particular person. It's going to follow a night watchman by the name of Flanagan. And so our story is going to begin one of the nights of his shifts, starting at 10 o'clock. But before Night Watchman Flanagan starts his day, we're going to have our first question of the Choose Your Own Adventure aspect. Should Night Watchman Flanagan grab his overcoat? Angel Island tends to be a pretty cold place at night, and so a jacket might come in handy. But we're going to put that up to a vote for you. So it looks like he's going to grab his coat, because it is a cold night, and by gosh is he happy he grabs it, because it is a particularly cold and dark night as Night Watchman Flanagan starts his rounds with his trusty lantern, venturing out into the dark night at the quarantine station. And as he starts his rounds, as he always does, he comes to a fork in the road where he gets the choice to either start his journey going to the right or to the left. So with that, we come to our second Choose Your Own Adventure question. Should Night Watchman Flanagan turn to the right or left? So it looks like Night Watchman Flanagan's going to go on a hike. So Night Watchman Flanagan starts his journey going to the right, where he walks along the beach of Iola Cove and makes his way up into the eucalyptus grove. As he's getting through the eucalyptus grove, he's starting to notice that it truly is a dark night. He can only see a little bit in front of himself because of the lantern. And as he's walking, he starts to hear something that sounds kind of like footsteps behind him. A ghostly ka-plunk ka-plunk sound follows him. And as he's walking, that sound just continues. Eventually growing eerie, Night Watchman Flanagan comes to a stop, and so does the sound. But no ordinary footsteps would have disturbed him like that. But these were no ordinary footsteps. No human could have been making that type of footstep. But Night Watchman Flanagan thinks maybe it's just his imagination, since it came to a stop when he did. So he starts back up, walking again. And that ghostly ka-plunk, ka-plunk sound follows after him. Being followed for sure. He's convinced that the devil must be after him. And so he turns to investigate, but then his lantern goes out. Should Night Watchman Flanagan try to relight that lantern, or should he just turn and run now? What did we get, Jack? What is Night Watchman Flanagan?
He's going to run from the footsteps. It could be dangerous.
Gonna run from the footsteps. So with that, these footsteps are just too abnormal, and so Night Watchman Flanagan runs, shouting that the devil must be after him. And so he's running and running, and eventually gets to the office where he works. And knocked out, let me in. He gets in, out of breath. He says that the devil must be after him, and that he heard these ghostly ka-plunk ka-plunk. And the other officers ask him if he had seen it. And he goes, no, but I heard it. And so they just laughed at him of like, dude, you ran from a sound in the dark? You're a night watchman. Your job is to investigate weird sounds. And so when he goes home from work, he's left with this feeling of like, did I do the right thing? Should I tell the rest of the staff what I heard, or should I keep it to myself? And so that's the question that our at-home audience gets to choose. Should night watchman tell the rest of the staff what he heard, or keep it to himself, since he got laughed at? So what did we get, Jack?
They decided to tell him what everyone heard and keep him safe.
So Night Watchman Flanagan, before starting his shift the next day, he goes and tells as many of the doctors and officers as he could of what he heard. Maybe inspired by his insistence on the story, another group of officers go out looking to see if they can see anything. And as they come to the beach, they find something strange. Something that looks almost like a footprint, but is gigantic in nature. And has these weird claw marks, and scrapes and drags. Maybe this is that monster, this sound that Night Watchman Flanagan mentioned. This is strange. And so maybe hearing about this, Night Watchman Flanagan the next night would be extra nervous starting his shift. Because now there was that sound that followed him last night, and these weird prints found on the beach. Surely that monster must be lurking. And the fact that it's an extra foggy night doesn't help with Night Watchman Flanagan's nervousness. And as he starts walking up to the remote smallpox compound where people who were on a ship that had someone test positive for having smallpox would stay, he starts hearing a sound again. That ghostly ka-plunk, ka-plunk. Feeling nervous, every step he takes, he hears that sound again. And he's left with a decision to either investigate or to turn and run again. So we're going to put that up to a vote again. Okay, Jack, what has Night Watchman Flanagan decided to do?
So with an overwhelming majority, he's going to go and investigate. He needs the answers.
So he lifts up his lantern to investigate, and he hears something rattling in the bushes. That ghostly ka-plunk, ka-plunk sound. Surely the creature must jump out. And it does. and it lifts itself off the ground until it was 10 feet tall, and with 2 jumps, it leaps over the hill. And so with this, Night Watchman Flanagan rushes back to the office and tells all the doctors and officers that will listen to him that surely this time he's seen the devil himself. And with that, people start wondering, like, maybe we should put out a search party to find this thing. And so the next day, they do just that. A whole group of doctors and officers and night watchmen gather to go over the clues that has happened so far. They found these large claw-like prints, that ghostly Ka-plunk Ka-plunk, and the figure that Night Watchman Flanagan saw that lifted itself off the ground until it was 10 feet tall and leaped over the hill. And so with that, those sets of clues, we're going to introduce our next character, the level-headed Dr. Trotter. Dr. Trotter worked at the quarantine station as one of the medical providers, but today he was going to be an investigator on the scene of the mystery of the Devil of Angel Island. And so with that, we have our first question about what Dr. Trotter should do. Should he start his search at the officers' houses where the Ka-plunk Ka-plunk sound was first heard? Should he start his search at the beach where those claw marks were found? Or should he go to this remote smallpox compound where it was seen the night before? So what do we get, Jack?
We should check out the smallpox compound.
So with that, Dr. Trotter sets out on his search on the for the Devil of Angel Island. And it is at this point in our story where Night Watchman Flanagan and Dr. Trotter are going to part ways, searching in different directions. Dr. Trotter starts his journey heading up to the remote smallpox compound, where it had been so foggy yesterday. But now that it's daytime, the fog's not there. And he goes to around that area where Night Watchman Flanagan said he saw it. And just then he starts to hear that sound of the footsteps. That ka-plunk, ka-plunk. Surely that must be the creature that Night Watchman Flanagan has been saying about. So I have a question for y'all playing along at home or at school. What do you think this mysterious devil is? If you're in a classroom, feel free to shout it out at your projector. And if you're at home, feel free to type it into the Q&A. We'll read out a few of those guesses as to what it is. And then we'll find out. Okay, Jack, what do the detectives playing along at home think?
So we've got a lot of different answers.
Okay.
I've seen ghost a couple times.
A ghost, okay.
I've seen a bear.
A bear, ooh.
Could be the wind.
The
I've seen
wind.
that as well. I've seen quite a few people saying kangaroo as well.
Kangaroo. Well, let's see what jumps out of these bushes or rattles its way out. We'll find out. Sure enough, it was a kangaroo. But what on earth is a kangaroo doing on Angel Island? For that, stick around for a behind-the-scenes look at this story and the reason why a kangaroo was here on Angel Island. Can we get a round of applause on our chat for our musicians? I'm going to step aside so they can see. So moving on into our behind the scenes look at this story. So as I mentioned before, this was based on a true story. There actually was an incident here at Angel Island when this was a quarantine station involving a night watchman named Flanagan who thought that the devil was after him. But when all was said and done, the level-headed doctor, Dr. Trotter, found that it truly was a kangaroo. To make this story, we had to do a lot of research into the events that happened here at Angel Island. We used both what are known as primary sources and secondary sources. Primary sources are something that was created at the time of the event. And so for this story, it was the news article itself and some of the photographs that we used. I labeled each of them with historic photograph if they were an actual primary source from the time. We also used what are known as secondary sources, which are something that's created after the facts of an event that are made to help communicate the history that happened. For this program, our main source was Me Walks to Missiles, which is a book about the history of Angel Island. As you might have caught, I played the role of Night Watchman Flanagan. I had to tuck up my hair into a hat to play the role. Our Dr. Trotter was played by my colleague, our site supervisor, Cynthia. She also is who helped with a lot of the photography and did the doodles that were on the photos. And she also is who made the footprint of the kangaroo, modeled after photos of real kangaroos. As I mentioned, we have a band behind me, and they're going to do a musical bow for you. So we as a state park really want to thank Del Sol for coming out to help make this program as amazing as it possibly could have been. I want to thank the three of you so much. It has been a blast telling this story with you. So that still leaves a mystery for you, though. Why was there a kangaroo on Angel Island? And so for that, we're going to go dive into the history of the quarantine station. So I want to ask the group, what does quarantine mean? If you're in a class, go ahead and turn to the neighbor next to you. If you have a computer in front of you, go ahead and type your answers in the Q&A. Just so that we can get a shared understanding of what this term means. Okay, Jack, what do we get in the chat?
So we've got some pretty detailed answers. We've got to keep distance from other people if you're sick.
Yeah.
We've got to be separated from everyone else to make sure that you aren't sick. A period of isolation where movement is restricted.
Yeah, so all of those are correct. Here in Angel Island, when this was an active quarantine site, both people, cargo, and animals would be quarantined and isolated in that way. So folks who are people coming from another country or returning from military service overseas, if their ship had some sign of an infectious disease going on, or they were coming from a country that the US government deemed a high risk of illness, they would come to Angel Island to spend several days to monitor for symptoms. And if anyone did end up with a disease, they could then be treated at the hospital. Angel Island was also a site for vaccinating for these infectious diseases. So if someone was on a ship that had smallpox, for example, they would then vaccinate everyone on the ship who may have come in contact with them, just to minimize that risk of that disease spreading throughout San Francisco. People had to stay in buildings like the ones here. These are actual photographs of what the quarantine station looked like at the time. Cargo or people's possessions would be sent to be decontaminated using steam and chemicals in these large chamber-like things. People whose stuff went through this process said that their possessions were never the same after going through this. People complained that their clothing had changed color, that there was a smell that lingered in their bag for months after it was cleaned here. There was even a rumor that if a soldier had an egg in their duffel bag, that it would hard boil the egg while it was being sanitized. But that still leaves a question. Why do you think the kangaroo was here on Angel Island? Go ahead and throw your answers in the chat, share them with each other in class, whatever is the easiest route for you. So what are some guesses that people came up with?
A lot of people think it could have belonged to a zoo of some kind.
Could have belonged to a zoo. Okay.
It was coming to America.
Yeah.
As a pet was an option as well.
Oh, as a pet.
Yeah.
So ultimately, we don't know for certain, but there were several zoos in California at the time that were bringing in kangaroos. A likely suspect as to where this kangaroo might have been headed was Golden Gate Park, which is known to have had kangaroos come through Angel Island on their way to that park. But ultimately, this was some mystery that even the quarantine station at the time might not have been able to figure out. But one way or another, this kangaroo likely came to be quarantined here on Angel Island. Angel Island is still a state park, and we are very interested in having you come out. You can see the places where we recreated these historic scenes. in this dramatic retelling of the story. All the places that are shown in the photos, the location where the photo was taken still exists, but most of the quarantine station was removed when this became a state park, though. However, the hospital that was the quarantine station hospital is now our visitor center. The dock is in the area where that quarantine station existed. And the smallpox compound you can get to on your way to most of the rest of the park. It's at the top of the stairs and is one of the easiest ways to get to Perimeter Road and to the immigration station portion of Angel Island State Park. So with that, I want to hand it over to the Q&A section to answer some questions that may have come up. So if you have any questions, throw them in that chat and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. Jack, what are some questions that we have in the chat?
So one of the ones I got a while back, and I do not know the answer to this, maybe you do, is somebody would like to know what the first largest park system on the planet is.
First largest what?
Park system on the planet.
Parks?
I honestly don't know the answer to that. So.
Ooh, I do not either. I'm sorry.
It's okay. See if we can find some more.
I will definitely do my research into that. Oh, did you say parks? Oh, that's the National Park Service. The United States is home to the biggest and second biggest. So the National Parks Service and the California State Parks.
So another question we've got is, does anybody live on Angel Island?
Yeah, park staff and family members of staff still live here on Angel Island. I personally live in one of the buildings that was part of the fire safety of this island at some point in time.
Another question we have is, how long did it take them to figure out it was a kangaroo?
How long did it take them to figure out? The article's a little unclear, but it sounds like it was night 3. Or within the 3rd day of after Night Watchman Flanagan had his first encounter. But their best guess is that the kangaroo had been living on Angel Island for at least 2 years. So that's quite a while that this kangaroo went unnoticed.
Somebody else wanted to know what happened to this kangaroo.
Based on the newspaper articles that we've read, it sounds like the kangaroo lived the rest of its life here on Angel Island, and once the Night Watch staff knew what it was, it became kind of a pleasant presence that they knew would follow along with them, and it just kind of be a fun animal that they would encounter some nights.
Somebody else would like to know, are there any actual ghost stories about Angel Island and any haunted encounters?
So with ghost stories, being a state park and government employees, ghost stories are inherently a kind of spiritual, religious sort of thing, and so as a state park, we have to take kind of a neutral stance. There was an episode of Ghost Adventures that was recorded in some parts of Angel Island, though.
What types of animals live on the island?
Well, nowadays there are deer, coyotes. There are a lot of different birds that either fly to the island or live here regularly. There are several species of crabs, and there are a lot of different species of fish that are on the outside of the island. There are also harbor seals, which are kind of one of our most charismatic creatures that live on the island.
Somebody else would like to know, when did the quarantine station shut down?
The quarantine station had its last patient in the mid 1940s, but it ran from right around the late 1880s through that 1940s.
someone else wants to know, what is the best way to get to Angel Island?
So the only way to get to Angel Island is by boat. There's two different companies that offer ferry services to Angel Island. The Golden Gate Ferry Company offers a ferry from San Francisco to Angel Island, and the Angel Island Ferry Company offers one from Tiburon to Angel Island. And both of those ferries go to the docks at Iola Cove, which was where this quarantine station was.
Well, I actually had a question for you, Andy. How did you find out about the story?
So I found out about the story, admittedly, a bit later than a lot of the employees did here. About a year ago, our nonprofit partner, the Angel Island Immigration Station Foundation, stumbled across this article, and their historian, Russell, shared it with pretty much everyone on the island. And so all of us knew about this story, and when I started working here, I just instantly fell in love with this story. As someone who likes, or as someone who's passionate about telling history of medical discrimination and people with disabilities, the story that took place in the quarantine station just instantly I vibed with and wanted to make a presentation like this out of. And the story was so popular with folks that when I mentioned it to anyone, people were just so interested in it. Del Sol was performing here a while back. I mentioned that I was doing this presentation, and they even were excited enough that they offered to do the great music they provided us today. I think we have time for one more question.
Someone else would like to know, do we have any field trips or programs here?
Yes, we definitely welcome in school groups. We have self-guided tours, which can be scheduled online, or guided tours that can be scheduled online. We also offer a program called Ports, which is kind of similar to this, but rather than having it on a special topic of the month, we do a standard tour of the immigration station, which is actually the building that I am in right now. Give a second to end that. So this is the immigration station that we offer tours of. It's a two-story museum, and both the virtual and in-person tours are of this space. Next month, we are doing a specialty day for our Portscast, which is what you're attending right now, where we're going to do an entire day where schools can register for being a part of that tour of the space. But we do offer on-demand, one-on-one with classes as well. And with that, I want to thank you all for being a great audience and wish you a very great day. If you are interested, there is another set of Portscasts hosted by another park that are starting right after this program at 10 o'clock. Have a great day.